For 15 long, painstaking months, a genocide has raged in the Gaza Strip. The official Palestinian death toll since October 7th stands at around 46,707 people killed, including almost 18,000 children. However, experts estimate that the actual death toll is over 186,000 people. Over 75,000 tons of explosives have been dropped on the 139 square miles of the Gaza Strip in the past 470 days. In comparison, the nuclear bomb dropped on Hiroshima during World War II was only 15,000 tons. 470 days of apartheid, collective punishment, phosphate bombs, 470 days of murdering journalists and bombing hospitals, 470 days of hell. Yet, for the first time in that 470 days, a lasting ceasefire has taken effect. Hello everyone, Atlas here. Surely enough, it seems we are actually getting a ceasefire deal in Gaza. On Wednesday, the Biden administration, as well as the Prime Minister of Qatar, announced that a ceasefire deal had been reached between Israel and Hamas, and it looks like an actual bona fide ceasefire deal. There were originally some concerns that the Netanyahu government might pull something at the last minute, or that there wouldn't be enough support for the ceasefire inside the Israeli government, but surely enough, a few days ago, Israel's Security Cabinet approved the ceasefire deal. And at 8:30 a.m. today in Gaza, the first stage of the ceasefire deal went into effect. I'm feeling a lot of emotions right now, the first of which is just shock. I mean, after seeing 15 months of brutality, bloodshed, and seeing America and Israel's total disregard for human life, as well as the total lack of any accountability, it didn't seem like any of this was possible, especially with an incoming Trump administration. But as the reality of the situation starts to actually sink in, obviously I'm ecstatic. This is what we fought so hard for months and months. Finally, the suffering of the people in Gaza can at least be somewhat alleviated. Finally, the people of Palestine can begin to rebuild and return to their homes and actually get the humanitarian aid they have so desperately needed. It genuinely makes me want to cry. These people can actually begin to live again. Palestine can begin to live again. They tried to erase the Palestinian people, but Palestine stood strong. There's this video of these Palestinian kids cheering at the top of their lungs because of the ceasefire, because the bombs are going to finally stop. And in a sense, it's really heartwarming to see. But in another sense, it's also really sad, because no one should have to endure the fucking hell that the IDF put the Palestinian people through, let alone fucking children. It is absolutely appalling that this was allowed to continue for 470 days. The absolute disregard for human life shown by the people responsible for these atrocities is vomit-inducing. Joe Biden, Anthony Blinken, John Kirby, Linda Thomas Greenfield, Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel Katz, all of them should be dragged to The Hague and tried for the atrocities they facilitated and were complicit in. My ranting aside, I want to talk about all the details of the ceasefire deal, but first we have to address the elephant in the room. Why agree to a ceasefire now? The Netanyahu government and the Biden administration were perfectly content with continuing this genocide for over a year, so why has there been this sudden change of heart? Well, there are probably a multitude of factors that played a role here, but there's one glaringly obvious reason for this deal getting done. I hate to admit it, but that reason is the guy from fucking Home Alone 2.
Down the hall and to the left.
Wait a second. The art of the deal.
May Allah awaken the people and help them to see the evil doings of Israel.
Jokes aside, yes, Donald Trump, the man who called Joe Biden a very bad Palestinian, was probably the biggest influence in the securing of the ceasefire deal. Unlike Biden's administration, Trump actually pressured the Israeli government to commit to a ceasefire deal. Biden was too meek and cowardly to actually pressure Israel. I mean, remember, he set a red line in Rafah. This is my red line. Do not cross this red line. And when that red line was crossed, he did absolutely nothing about it. And he has refused as well as Kamala Harris, refused to threaten even a weapons embargo, which would be the bare minimum. Now, let me remind you that Hamas has asked several times to exchange all of the hostages for a ceasefire deal, which has been rejected by Israel every single time. Hamas was not the obstacle to ceasefire negotiations, despite what the US government would like you to believe. Trump has very easily demonstrated what the left has been saying all along, that Biden could have ended the war with just a phone call. But he refused to do so because he cared more about trying to win a presidential race he shouldn't have even entered than the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And this is not to say Trump is some sort of hero or anything, he's simply just playing good politics. One, this is a massive opportunity for Trump to move Muslims and young people into the Republican column, but two, he's just doing what's popular. Everyone except rotting neoliberal corpses understood that a ceasefire was objectively popular across the country. He's also very clearly undercutting Joe Biden, because now he can say Joe Biden had 15 months to get the hostages out and failed because he was weak, but I got them out before I even got into office. Do not forget, he's still the guy that wanted to turn Gaza into a parking lot, and I'm sure he would have continued doing exactly what Biden was doing if it was politically popular. Of course, Biden wants to take credit for the ceasefire because he's almost as much of a narcissist as Trump, but people definitely aren't going to see it that way. Everyone who's at least semi-well informed on the Palestinian genocide understands Biden's complicity and active participation in it. What exactly will this ceasefire deal look like? The ceasefire deal that has been outlined has 3 phases to it. As I said before, at 1:30 a.m. EST, the first phase of the ceasefire deal went into effect. It's expected to last 6 weeks. This first phase will consist of a partial withdrawal of the IDF from Gaza, the release of 33 hostages by Hamas, and hundreds of Palestinian prisoners will be released. In addition, there is supposedly going to also be a surge of humanitarian aid allowed into the Gaza Strip. The second phase of the ceasefire will come next, which will also last for 6 weeks. This phase is supposed to be when we see an actual, complete, permanent cessation of hostilities, the total removal of Israeli forces from the Gaza Strip, as well as the exchange of male Israeli hostages and more Palestinian prisoners. Finally, the third phase will consist of the exchange of the remains of the dead, as well as a reconstructing deal in Gaza that's supposed to last from 3 to 5 years. It's very similar to the deal outlined by the Biden administration last year, the difference being that this time there was actual pressure on the Israeli government to accept the deal. It's a very good day for the cause of Palestinian freedom. They tried to erase the Palestinian people and their legacy from the face of the earth, and failed. But let's not forget that the fight for Palestine and the right to self-determination for the Palestinian people is far from over. When the smoke clears, millions of Palestinians will still be living under apartheid. Millions more will be trying to put the pieces of their lives back together in the Gaza Strip. And still, millions overseas will be waiting for the right to return to their homes that they were driven from over 70 years ago. We still have a long ways to go till Palestine is truly free. But at least for today, we can celebrate the fact that there is finally peace in Gaza. Anyway, that's all I have for today's video. Obviously, there's a lot more discussion to be had. Israel's still going to try and extract every single concession they can from Hamas, but a lot of those details we're not going to have for a little while. Thank you all so much for watching today's video. Just because the bombs have stopped dropping doesn't mean the humanitarian crisis in Gaza is over. Please consider checking out Operation Olive Branch, linked in the description below, to support families on the ground in Gaza. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Free Palestine.